if you want to attract people to your center, you have to be Instagrammable. I keep saying this, and this definitely goes for the hotel sector. We were looking at a hotel earlier today, and I said, it's just not Instagrammable. You're at a 30% occupancy because there's nothing here that I want to brag about. There's nothing amazing here. This is a means to an end type of hotel.
Welcome to Africa Business Radio. I am Chukunonso Modi. Today we are journeying to South Africa and we're looking at the South African retail sector. Now, against all odds, is showing strong signs of recovery with shop activity returning to pre-pandemic levels. And with me on the show is the CEO of Galetti Corporate Real Estate, John Jack, who will share his insights into what's driving the recovery and how consumer shopping preferences have shifted since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome, John. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Okay. So now let's start with this. Speak to us about your experience with the pandemic. How much did it hit the South African retail sector, or better still, the property market? How challenging was it?
I think it was pretty similar around the world in that the first couple of months we had really hard lockdowns in South Africa. So retail almost died completely. And then post that, that was maybe 3 months. And post that, then there was a general paranoia about being around one another and getting sick. And there were a lot of deaths. And so that had a knock-on effect. And so it took a long time for people to start recovering. And I think we've got to the point now, certainly from the beginning of the year, where you saw a lot more activity in the shopping centers and a lot more activity in the retail and the restaurants and all that type of thing. And as much as a month ago, we've, had a full relaxation here where you're allowed to have larger events. You'll probably start to see some travel again. So the hospitality sector's picking up. You saw Sun International release recently that they were back to sort of 90% of pre-COVID levels. And, so that's all of that's building up again. And that all impacts retail directly for sure. Yeah.
Now, the whole basis of this talk is that there is a recovery now. So, but, in a situation where many feared that, we spoke about load shedding, the COVID-19 lockdown, and of course, the lockdown brought about the rise of e-commerce. So many feared that the brick and mortar stores, that's the physical stores, will come to an end. But that's not it at the moment. So what's driving this recovery?
I think there are two things. One, people are just excited to be out. Two, we were talking earlier about load shedding. In South Africa, recently we're at stage 6 load shedding, which means you have 6 hours plus a day with load shedding. And we're in a situation where not everyone has generators at home or backup batteries or whatever. So it's quite expensive. And only now you're starting to see models come into the market where someone will finance it for you and then you pay almost like a monthly rental for the kit. But really what that means is lights are off at home, and what do you want to do? Sit at home in the dark with a candle, or alternatively you're going to go out to retail.
Yes.
And so you're seeing definitely that the shopping centers have generators, and so people are going there. So that's one of the things. The other thing is people are just generally optimistic and happy to be out and happy to be at restaurants and out at meetings again and back at the office and all of those type of things. So I think it's definitely a feeling of freedom and being out there and all of those good things. However, you've got to caveat it that we might find ourselves actually reconciling this rush back to retail at the end of the year, because in South Africa, again, we're under pressure here because the fuel price is rocketing. It's costing a significant amount to fill your car these days. And a lot of the economy is reliant on taxis and so on to get to work. We don't have a very good public rail system here, so it's largely taxi reliant. And, the taxi guys are saying, well, fuel price is doubling. And so we've got to double our charges. And that has a massive impact on people actually getting out to start off with. And secondly, filling their own cars, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going to have a knock-on effect. And then secondly, obviously, load shedding takes the nose off any GDP growth. So we may well find the optimism in the first and second quarter being quelled in the third and fourth quarter. So it's something that we've got to keep an eye on and see what happens. But again, coming back to some of the commentary, globally, you're seeing a lot of travel resurgence. So Europe's just, massively busy at the moment. Trying to get a passport to go anywhere is going to take you weeks to try and get a visa, certainly if you're coming out of South Africa. And we really, really, really need to focus on getting that travel to come to South Africa at the end of the year. So I hope we're ready. I hope the tourism guys and the hospitality guys are ready for it. And certainly, are we ready to issue all those visas? Are our departments ready for it? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's see what happens in the 3rd and 4th.
Exactly. Let's see, because I was going to talk about the whole load shedding and the fact that fuel costs and prices are going really high. So that is kind of, as much as we're happy that there is a recovery, that is really shaking that recovery a lot. Okay, now you said something in the article that I came across, and you said that transactions in South Africa are traditionally very cash heavy, and given the significant digital divide, that a regular access internet-enabled technology still exists, brick-and-mortar retail stores will continue to play a crucial role. So does this mean that technology plays a very vital role in this recovery?
I think technology certainly, but that's more, we've got in South Africa quite a skewed distribution of income, right? So there is, in terms of number of people, there are a small number of people earning a lot of money and a big number of people not earning a lot of money or nothing at all. Okay. And so typically in the lower LSMs, you find a lot of cash. Certainly there is new technology to transfer money, between countries at the moment, which is great, because a lot of money goes home to the different African countries, because your family might be living here, you personally might be working in South Africa. And so that's, I think, where technology plays a role. But when it comes to actually going to the shop and, buying your goods and all the rest of it, you see a lot of cash transactions, certainly in the lower LSM markets for sure. In the highest LSM markets, it's Apple Pay and it's card function and that kind of thing. And that's where you're seeing a lot of those transactions happening. So it really depends, what market you're talking about.
Okay. Now, comparing with how the South African property market was pre-pandemic and even during the pandemic, how has this recovery boosted the market in South Africa? How much has it recovered?
You're saying how much has the market recovered since pre-pandemic levels?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, it's interesting. So you'll see investment into what we call line shops or convenience centers or, that type of thing. There have been a lot of smart guys who've gone and bought, let's say, rundown convenience centers. And these are centers where you used to go to get your milk and eggs and all the rest of it for the week, and it was just convenient for you. What they've actually done is they've blown it out a little bit. They put a nice coffee shop there. Maybe they've put a Woolworths in there with a restaurant or whatever it might be. It allows the people to maybe spend a bit more time there and spend a bit more of their money at the same time. But so that recovery has been amazing. What's done badly, however, are those centers which are, let's call them more destination type of, it's a shop where you're just going there to shop and that's all it is. There's nothing for you to sort of stay around for and spend your money on. Those haven't done so well because people are going to places where, they spend time. So in terms of tracking numbers and all the rest of it, it depends on what market you're looking at. But there's a huge resurgence. I mean, retail levels were, sort of down at some points down at sort of 30% of where they were in terms of actual trade through that center, which is incredible. Another very, very interesting statistic I saw recently is produce sales, so food sales into the market. Are they selling to restaurants or are they selling to the actual retailers where, you and I are going to buy our vegetables or whatever it is? And you've seen this huge, more and more produce is being sold into the restaurants and less is being sold into the retailer. So what this is telling us is that the market is moving to actually eat out as opposed to eat in. And you're seeing this actually, this trend replicating in the sort of inner city area. So you'll see, a lot of smaller apartments, we call them apartments or micro apartments. These things are sort of 20, 30 square meters in city centers. And they've got a very small kitchen, or certainly if you want to whip something bigger up, it's not going to help you. But, it's like you can warm your food up type of thing, but that's pretty much it. And so people are eating out, and that's kind of the trend, especially with the millennials. You're seeing a lot of moving to the market, and they've got a little bit more disposable income. They certainly are just buying food out as opposed to making it themselves. And with the food price escalation, it sometimes actually makes sense to just eat out as opposed to buying all of this in, and you eat in 3 nights a week, and then you've got a lot of stuff going off in your fridge and that you haven't touched. And so it's actually starting to make sense to eat this convenient food and just be out and just be done with it, So a lot of trends are changing in the market, for certain.
Yeah, so you're saying that aside, the rise of e-commerce, consumer shopping preferences has changed as well. There's so much happening right now.
For sure, yeah. A lot of change in dynamic. That's absolute. At the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was learning to bake bread, and now that's the first thing that runs minds. Everyone's out at the restaurants. You can see it happening. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Now, we can't. We've said that this recovery is definitely a good sign. It's slow, but then it's moving. But then there's still additional challenges that the industry can definitely not succumb to. Now, how can the industry ensure that these challenges doesn't stop the recovery?
So we're talking more across the commercial sector in general, or are we focusing on retail?
Let's do retail first, then maybe we can go into commercial.
Okay, so challenges with regard to recovery for retail are certainly, making it accessible. And I keep saying this, but people post-pandemic are very focused on, let's say, their perception, or you'll see all of those globally, all of the the sort of high net worth brands, so the Chanels and the Gucci's and all this type of thing, and people spending money on Botox in their face and what they look like and all the rest of it, because they spend the day looking at themselves on Zoom, right? So they want to look good. And then after that, it starts going to Instagram. And what does that actually look like? Now, if you want to attract people to your center, you have to be Instagrammable. I keep saying this, and this definitely goes for the hotel sector. We were looking at a hotel earlier today, and I said, it's just not Instagrammable. You're at a 30% occupancy because there's nothing here that I want to brag about, or there's nothing amazing here. This is a means to an end type of hotel, whereas you actually want to be somewhere where there's a place to be, because that's what people want. They want to be seen. They want to, so there's been this huge trend towards these platforms. And so you've got to create little experiences. And it was late Rudolf Pinar, who was head of Growth Point at that point of commercial, and they'd just taken on the waterfront in Cape Town. And they've just created these experiences all over the waterfront, and as a result have done very well as the waterfront. And that's really what you need to do from a retail point of view, is you need to create something that is a good environment to be in. And that translates directly to office. Now, you want to go to office, the trend has been to go to mixed-use office. Why mixed-use office? Because it's got a bit of retail, it's got the office, it's got a couple of apartments if you want to stay there or you live there. And it's very convenient and very easy, and it's generally quite a enjoyable environment to be in, as opposed to these older B-grade offices that just sit by themselves, and it's not a nice. It's just a means to an end, really. Mm-hmm. It's got to be. It's got to be space as a service, as opposed to just the fundamental space. Mm. If it's just a fundamental space, a whole lot of bricks piled on top of each other, it really just doesn't create an environment that anyone wants to be at. So they might as well just stay at home, right? Mm-hmm. They can. Mm-hmm. Everyone's got flexible work hours, so maybe your home environment is better. And that's what it is. It's attracting people to the office, to the retail. The only difference, sector specifically that is very different is manufacturing and logistics, because you can't do that from home. And it doesn't matter whether you like the space or not. It's a big box. Yeah. You got to go and manufacture there. That's the end of the story. So that's all about profitability and how easy it is to use the space, and what additional facilities do you have there. And you're seeing the newer buildings. Maybe the big change there is that the newer buildings, so the bigger logistics with more height to eaves, better yards or deeper yards, just a better looking office block, etc., are attracting tenants on longer rentals. And another big trend we've seen there is that steel prices have almost doubled in the last 2 years. So those new properties that are coming out are really driving or pioneering new rentals in the market. So that's what's changing there. And so if you don't want to be left behind in industrial, you have to make it a nice, efficient building to use. And efficiency is key because in manufacturing, the margins are quite thin. So you really have to drive your means to an end. And that's what it is there. You need to have a new type logistics facility. And if you have an older building, well, then you certainly want to look at how you can make it more efficient or more attractive to a manufacturer or an assembly person or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with the whole attraction because, like you said, on Instagram, people who post, they're likely to go where, oh, this place looks nice, they have this really nice waterfront or things like that. That's what attracts them more. Yes, I agree.
They become your own disciples. Do you know what I mean? Like there they are, you're desperate to get your property out into the market and attract more people. And what could be better than 1,000 people staying there and then posting pictures of themselves
Exactly.
1,000 times, attracting 1,000 more people. It's just it's obvious almost,
Yes.
So send your disciples out there, get them talking about your property.
No problem. Now let's talk about your company, Galetti Corporate Real Estate. How were you able to deal with the whole challenges that came with the pandemic? And most importantly, what's your unique selling point?
Yeah, I think what we've done is we've invested quite heavily in our tech. So, the first 2 months, we really sort of rallied together as a team. We started every single morning with a Zoom call like this with the whole company on board. And we just have a chat and a discussion about what opportunities we were seeing. And remember, in those first phases of lockdown, it was very much, you couldn't even leave your house to show a building to a client, let alone do anything. And a big part of our business is actually corporate advisory. So what we do in that section of the business, we go into the corporates, we understand their entire footprint. It could be throughout Africa, it could be globally, it could be throughout South Africa, and we understand their entire footprint, and we come up with different strategies to reduce their overhead. And you can imagine how popular that was during COVID. So your rental overhead is 20 million rand for the year. We try and make that 15 million rand. And there are various different strategies we might roll out there. We might consolidate 5 buildings that you have into one building. We might look for a more efficient building for your operation. We might negotiate or restructure your rental terms to reduce your rental overhead, either an early renewal or better terms at renewal, or we might surrender a lease. Whatever it is that reduces your overhead, that was what we focused on. So a lot of financial modeling, a lot of advisory there. So that was our saving grace during COVID, I suppose, because it's a very popular service. And then secondly, we've invested a lot in tech. So what we've done is we've created an overlay in South Africa. You can imagine a Google Earth, and we overlay our properties that we track. We've got only 20,000 throughout the country, owned by various landlords. And we then connect to the deeds office. It pulls back in the deeds information. And what we've done is we've then bundled making sense of that information. So if we know an entity belongs to one of the listed funds, we connect the entity. And then for all of time, every time that entity is picked up anywhere throughout the country, it then shifts that property into the portfolio of the listed fund. So it gives us a consolidated view of the market and an understanding of our clients' portfolios, but also an understanding of that micro market. So I might want to understand one particular suburb. It tells me who all the owners are. It tells me the sizes of all the buildings, and it tells me the vacancy within those buildings, and then the asking rental. So you can build up a lot of stats on the back of that, and it really helps you to understand the market better. So that's probably our USP, that and our corporate advisory space.
That's a really smart one. I mean, it makes it way easier to pick, to know what your preference is. Now, are your clients just South Africans, or you can also take on other people?
Yeah, we take on clients globally for sure. Yeah, so I mean, sometimes it's inbound. So we work on, a couple of years back, we worked on Caterpillar as an example, something that comes up top of my mind, and that came from a partner of ours sitting in Chicago. It was their client, and they brought it to us, and then we transacted for them locally. Sometimes it's outbound, so we've done work up in Congo, we've done work in Kenya, so it depends on, we follow the client. So depending on what that client has and wherever they are, they could be in Italy, they could be in the UK. We look at their portfolio and we try and rationalize their footprint. And to try and get that sort of local area knowledge, we might partner with a local broker or someone who has a strong information set in that micro market in order to try and give us the comps that we require to build into our financial models in order to restructure their lease agreement. So you need the local knowledge always, but then it also comes out in your sort of financial models that you've built, personally.
Amazing, really. You're kind of shifting me to the corporate real estate, because it seems like there's a whole lot of profit there.
Yeah, I think corporate real estate certainly. What happens is that they are excellent in the realm of making cans or being an architect or an accountant or whatever it is. That's their space and that's the thrust of their business and that's what they focus on. So property becomes an afterthought. It's almost a procurement function really, as we go in and we're able to sense check. And because property is not a uniform traded good, so what the price of an iPhone is in your market. I know what the price of an iPhone is in my market. We've got a uniform information available to us on the internet. The difference in property is that it's a non-uniform asset. So yes, they both might be a 10,000 square meter warehouse here and a 10,000 square meter warehouse there, but they might be completely different in terms of what they are fundamentally offering to the clients. And you need to be able to benchmark that, understand it, and then take that understanding and program it backward. And so basically what happens is we sit in as the advisory piece or the property team or the real estate team, as it were, for that client. And so we do real estate, they make cans, and we try and procure one of their biggest spends, because behind your people, your human capital, the next biggest spend you have is, aside from raw materials and all that kind of thing, is your property. It's a massive operating expense for the corporates. And if you can go in there and drive efficiencies for them, whether it be energy efficiency, so looking at how you can improve their energy efficiencies. Is it the new sort of LED light bulbs throughout the offices? Are they in an older building which will never be efficient, and you relocate them? Because we've got a situation where in older buildings, electricity charges might be up to 50, 60 Rand a square meter, whereas in the newer building, it's 20 Rand a square meter. Now that's significant in terms of a move when you consider that the rental in totality is about 150 to 200 Rand a square meter for an office building. Talking a reduction of 30 Rand a square meter is, 15 to 30% reduction on rental. It's quite significant. Yeah,
it is. I truly agree with you. All right. Thank you so much, John, for coming on the show and for talking to me and to the listeners.
Amazing.
All right.
Thank you.
That was John Jack, the CEO of Galetti Corporate Real Estate. More coming your way. Stay tuned.